Hello there, everyone. You're listening to episode 92 of Around the Hearth, a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by a couple guys who brought our soapboxes with us today. As always, I'm rebobson.
And I'm Adam.
And as always, on every show, we like to give a special shout out to our patrons that make this show possible for their continued support. Louise, Michael, Jennifer, Kira, Huckman, and Daniel. We love you guys. If you would like to join this list of amazing people around the hearth and get some other cool rewards, please check out patreon.com/aroundthehearth. The link will be in the show notes as always. If you're watching us live and you have Amazon Prime, please consider using your Twitch Prime sub to get some sweet ATH emotes to use in the chat each Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you can't sub, then follows are always more than welcome. We love the support all the same. Now, on to our weeks in Hearthstone. Adam, how was yours?
Another light week in Hearthstone for me. I basically did part 3 of that special brawl. And I did my card of the week homework, both of which were incredibly painful.
Oh God, yeah.
For those of you who don't, we'll touch on card of the week later, and you'll understand why. But it was not a very fun week in Hearthstone for me. But maybe things will change around this coming week, since it's coming into the last week of the month. Just jam out some stars to get my card back. I saw a really cool card back. Remember last month's card back was like a pizza? Someone made a salad card back to go along with it, and it looked really cool. And I was kind of hoping that was going to be it, but apparently it is not a salad card back.
To go with the lemonade, you can have some lemonade, some pizza, and some salad.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they couldn't do a beer one, I don't think. But pizza, because pizza and beer and salad are like best friends. But anyway. Now I'm making myself hungry. rebobson, how'd your week in Hearthstone go? Maybe hopefully better than me.
Yeah, it was okay. I can't really think of anything notable that actually happened with it. I played around a bit with the card of the week, and it made me hate my life. Did the tavern brawls, just been kind of doing my daily quests. Carried on.
Just so you know, when you guys do submit cards of the week, we do actually play with them. And we will put our stars on the line for you.
My EU account has been just firmly at the rank floor for the past 2 weeks, just because of card of the week. The Gonk quest druid really ruined that one.
Well, maybe we'll get out of the cellar this week, rebobson.
Oh, I'm not so sure, man. I'm really not so sure. But it was kind of an average week, really. I'm not kind of pushing for anything. I'm just doing my daily quests and playing my THL matches. I've had a pretty good run in the past couple of weeks, and last hero standing with Odd Warrior. I've gone 6-0 with it.
Damn.
Warrior is crazy.
Well, you always like that deck anyway.
Oh, I love it. But I'm just very happy with some of the matchups I've been winning with Odd Warrior. In that 6-0, I've beaten Death Rattle Hunter, I've beaten Big Spell Mage, and I've beaten Quest Warrior.
So matches you probably shouldn't have won, is what you're saying?
Those are all kind of 30 to 35% matchups, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. Figuring out at the start of the game how I'm supposed to beat Quest Warrior and then doing it, I felt so smart. For anyone who's wondering, the key is to just keep cubing Direhorn hatchlings just over and over again, because then you end up with 10 6/9s. Which absorb 2 hits from their hero power, and they're just like, oh man, I'm kind of boned here.
It's a lot of moms, It's like a lot. Yeah, I think that matchup always came down to who could get their Direhorn matriarchs in the deck, or get more of them in the deck.
Yeah, Direhorn is kind of just a pretty sick card. You don't think about it too much, but it's one that I'm definitely going to miss quite a lot when the set rotation happens, because it's just a pretty cool card. There's so many cards from Angora like that. We're just like, that's a pretty cool card. I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I think about that card all the time. That little dinosaur's cute as heck.
Yeah, dude. Like, when it first happened, I was like, oh, look at it. And then the Diehole matriarch just looks badass.
Yeah, she's mad that her baby's dead.
But anyway, that was my week in Hearthstone. Adam, what's been going on in the news?
All right, so not much in the way of actual game news, but there is a couple of things I did want to make it talk about real quick. So in a recent tweet, Hearthstone game designer Iskar asked of the community, if Hearthstone used to be your main game, what would get you back? And there were a lot of replies from longtime Hearthstone celebs, including Dog, Firebat, Trump, and even our very own Rebobson. There were a lot of different kinds of responses focusing on a variety of topics, such as game modes, nerf-specific cards, tournament mode, etc. There's a lot of, they kind of run the gamut of length and what contents. It's all over the place. So if you want to check that out, there's an article on Hearthstone Top Decks about it. We're going to put that link to that in the show notes.
I'm in it for some reason.
Well, I mean, you're not on the article, but I know you did reply to him because I looked at my Twitter feed and saw you did it.
Well, no, I mean, I'm in the article.
Oh, wait, really? Oh, shoot.
My reply was in there. I was just like, why am I here?
Hey, it's like you're famous now.
Yes.
We did it. All right, cool. Speaking of Hearthstone Top Decks, Evident, the creator of the site, in a recent post this week to the website, announced that he was going to be stepping down as the lead admin and handing over the reins to Stonekeep, a longtime content creator for the website. This is due to his term contract being up with the multi-channel network ZAM. The site will be in good. I still believe the site's going to be in really good hands under Stonekeep. He makes a lot of good content for the site, and he's very passionate about Hearthstone. And he always seems to have some you think even with lulls like this, there's nothing to really talk about. But Stonekeep always finds stuff to guides to make or topics to talk about, something to get the community chatting, starting a dialogue. So I think it was a good call to hand over the reins of Top Decks to Stonekeep. By the way, if you haven't checked out already, HearthstoneTopDecks.com is a really useful Hearthstone resource and probably my favorite when it comes to finding out what people are playing and keeping up with news and etc. So if you haven't checked that site out yet, please do. I would definitely do so. And you can see that Rebobson's now on that site and I'm not. So,
Yeah.
Well, at least half the show is famous. That's it as far as actual game news. We do actually have a lot of esports news this week. So, Rebobson, what's up?
Well, there's obviously some very big news to talk about regarding the big esports announcement that just took place since our last show. But we've got so much to say on that. We're going to use the whole of our main segment to talk about that instead of taking up probably the entire episode if we just start talking about it now. So stay tuned for 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, so just in case you were tuning in to hear part 2 of our Hearthstone 101 series on how to be a better control player, we are doing that next week. So don't worry, we didn't forget. We're not abandoning that. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we just figured that we have so much to talk about, we're going to push it back a week. But before we get to that, in some other esports news, Choose Your Champion is up on the Play Hearthstone site with the opportunity to choose from the 16 competitors competing at Winter Champs on the 28th of February, which is this Thursday, folks. And deck lists are now public, so I'm here to give you some advice on who to pick based on their lineups. So 8 classes were brought, 15 players bringing Hunter, only 1 player, one of the Asia Pacific players, I've forgotten who it was actually, Definition I think, and no one brought Shaman whatsoever. There is a lot of anti-control and combo, so there's 5 Death Rattle Hunters, there's 7 Clone Priests, there's 6 Quest Rogues, there's even a Hakar Druid and a Topsy Quest Priest. So for this reason, I really like the 2 players who just fully committed to bringing an aggressive lineup. Those are Bunny Hopper and Viper. They both brought Mid-Range Hunter and Odd Secret Mage, which is 2 tournaments only 2 mages. And then besides that, Viper went for a Murloc Paladin and a Malygos Rogue, which is spicy. We haven't seen Murloc Paladin being competitively played for a long time now. So I'm a huge fan. Friend of the show, Steffi, massive Murloc Paladin fan, so she's ecstatic about it, I'm sure. And then Bunny Hopper went for Even Paladin and Pirate Miracle Rogue. Unsure of how to classify it really. So that's slightly less all-in on targeting Priest, but it's just good aggressive depths. And Bunny Hopper has hit the absolute jackpot in terms of the other 3 players in his group. All 3 other players in his group have the trio of Death Rattle Hunter, Quest Rogue, and Clone Priest.
Okay, so he's gonna rip them up basically with his aggro lineup in a combo-centric group.
Yeah, so Bunny Hopper is like dead favorite to win his group, and for them from that point, it's like he has already qualified for Champ Worlds. Remember, 4 players in this tournament.
So did Viper, right?
Yeah, 4 players in this tournament have already qualified for Worlds. So that means that there are 4 spots between 12 players essentially.
But what happens if? Well, hang on. So what happens if Viper or Bunny Hopper take one of those 4 spots?
Like, it'll go to the. I think it goes to the player that they play against in top 8.
Okay, I was gonna say like them gatekeeping is kind of would be kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, no, 4 players from this tournament will make it. If Bunny Hopper or Viper make the top 4, it's going to be someone who's like 5th or 6th.
Okay.
So the EV at this tournament is nuts. So the other players should be feeling pretty good about themselves. So, but the choose your champion, it's still talking about who gets 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So I think Bunny Hopper is the pick for choose your champs. If you haven't done it already, highly recommend him. You got to remember, he has made Worlds while he was still doing his PhD. He's now a full-time Hearthstone player. And think of how good he was when he wasn't even playing it all the time. He's going to be nuts. And on top of that, he has the best lineup in a highly favored group for him. He's going to kill it.
Right, well, it's too late for me. I picked Tyler.
I picked Bunny Hopper. I picked Bunny Hopper before the lineups. Then I saw the lineups. I was like, I feel really good about my choice right about now.
I'll put it this way. I didn't tell anyone else to pick Tyler. I told them to pick Bunny Hopper or Viper, so.
That's fair. I just like Tyler, so I would be thrilled to see him do well. But he's already going to Worlds, so it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Well, I just think he kills it in his region. So, I mean, maybe he knows something we don't, you know?
He's just good. Like,
yeah.
he went to playoffs, got made top 8 in the Swiss, having just not played for 2 months. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
Well, but that's enough about my suggestions for Choose Your Champs. We've got a little bit to talk about last week's card of the week, because
oh boy, do we ever! You guys, I'm not sure if you guys like us or do you love us or not, but last week's card of the week was Dr. Morrigan, the Warlock Legendary minion from the Boomsday Project. If you don't know, it's an 8-mana 5/5 that death rattles to summon a minion from your. What is it? Was it summon a minion from your deck? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like this card is impossible to make work.
Yeah, you really have to try hard. Like I have to, like 1, you have to build the entire deck around getting this minion. 2, you actually have to get this minion on time. And there's no way to like cheat it in or down cost it or anything.
Like I desperately tried for about 5 games to try and get like it's something like Bran, Morrigan, Baleful Banker, then the following turn Umbra, Morrigan, or Umbra, Knife Juggler, Morrigan, but it was just so clunky and you're taking up so many cards at that point for a really terrible combo. I just lost every game before I could even do it.
Yeah, I kind of... Okay, so I didn't... you went wild, so at least you had like a chance to make Dr. Morrigan like the spotlight of the deck.
In Standard, I couldn't think of a single thing to do with this card.
Me neither.
The thing about this card is the fact that it's a death rattle instead of a battle cry makes it so bad. Remember Madame Goya? How bad that card was? Now imagine that being twice as bad, and that is this card.
Yeah, it's just like you just can't do it. Like I tried to do some gitchy things with like standard like kind of thing like what rebobson did with the Baleful Bankers and the Knife Jugglers and stuff. But then I was like, this is just isn't working. So basically, I put her in even Warlock, and that didn't work either. And even if I did play her, I'm like, this doesn't feel that good. So
it's an 8-mana 5/5.
Yeah, it's just like I could have the Lich King here, but instead I'm playing Dr. Morrigan.
Yeah. I mean,
didn't really
we
feel
tried.
that good. We did. We honestly tried.
This card can just be summed up by we tried, we failed. But maybe we'll have a bit better luck with this week's card of the week.
Oh, this is cool because it's actually one of my favorite cards from Boomsday. This is suggested us by Bearded Man, a longtime listener of the show, and it's the legendary mage spell Luna's Pocket Galaxy. So for 7 mana, you can make all the minions in your deck cost 1, which is pretty cool.
Yep, there's some really cool stuff you can do with this. Like, one thing I've seen done is you play this in a deck with Grand Archivist, and you play it in, like, Spiteful Mage.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, actually. Like, you would play Grand Archivist, and then this card, and then, like, maybe a couple other spells, and that would be it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it will be... Like, you can play, like, Flame Strike as well, so the Grand Archivist pulling one of the other spells isn't quite as bad.
Oh, yeah.
Play, like, Pyroblast, it can hit you in the face.
I mean, listen, if you're going to play Grand Archivist, you should play Pyroblast, just for lulz, in my opinion.
True. Very true. Nothing like Pyroblasting yourself in the face. But what Beardy Man did suggest alongside this on Twitter is using it with Murloc Mage and Alanef. I think that's pretty spicy.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea because, like in the late game, first of all, you're gonna have to refill your hand because you're playing Murloc Mage. 2, like if you're limiting the number of spells in your deck, having all your Murlocs cost 1 is pretty. All your minions cost 1 is pretty insane. Not just your Murlocs, but like your Gentle Megasaurs and like anything else that you're playing that's not a Murloc. Costing 1 in the late game means like you just get a shitload of value.
Yeah. Or you could do, like, combine the two and play Spiteful Mage with Alanef. It's just so your Spiteful Summoners cost 1, and your bigger minions cost 1.
Yeah, sorry for cussing, by the way. It's just, I get very excited when I think about the value.
The things that Luna's Pocket Galaxy does to Adam. Well, we will keep everyone posted about our efforts with this one. I'm feeling more hopeful with this one than I am about Dr. Morrigan, for sure. That card was horrible.
It was very bad, yeah. If you had this,
I hope to never see it again.
Yeah, if you have Dr. Morrigan in your collection, I could say you can safely dust this card. You do not need to hold on to that for any reason.
Nope. Definitely not.
But I should also mention that Luna's Pocket Galaxy in Golden looks really cool.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty card. But we shall see. But for now, I have something that I want to talk about in our Decker of the Week. So, this was another one that was suggested for last week, but I just wanted to do it because I saw it, and I would have done it last week if I had not already had a pretty spicy suggestion already. But this is Flark's Boomzooka Hunter from AudreyKillss on Twitter, who is my teammate on Swagway. That is at AudreyKillss with 2 S's at the end, if you want to go and follow her, and I think you should. Deck code will be in the show notes as always, but let's just get it up on the screen now. So it's an interesting spin on kind of big secret hunter, which aims to utilize the recruit package represented by Katharina Winterwisp, as well as the distinctly powerful hunter secret spellstone package, which may not be as powerful as it was before the spellstone nerf to 6 mana, but still pretty powerful. The main gimmick, however, is the frankly silly combo of Flark's Boomzooka and Revenge of the Wild, which is, I think, the combo used to present Revenge of the Wild back on the reveal stream for Rasticon's Rumble.
Yeah, that was there, and I remember Hockey Boys getting really excited about it, too.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Revenge of the Wild is a 2-mana spell that resummons all of your beasts that died this turn, and it's actually started seeing a fair amount of competitive play in mid-range Hunter because of its insane synergy with Unleash the Hounds. So, speaking of the secret package, Audrey's list runs 2 Wandering Monsters, 2 Freezing Traps, Explosive Trap, Venom Strike Trap, and Snake Trap as one-offs. And of course, you got double Spellstone, and there's double Eaglehorn Bow in there as well, to kind of take advantage of all these secret procs. And then with the recruit package, there is the eponymous Katharina Winterwisp, as well as King Crush and Duster, Double Charge Devil Saw, and a single Witch with Grizzly as a defensive option. There's also a single Dire Frenzy to put some more beasts back into the deck for either Katharina or Flark's Boomzooka. And there's a few other defensive options in the list. There's a single Spider Bomb, though there are no Death Rattle activators to go alongside it. Houndmaster Shore, 2 baited arrows, 2 deadly shots, and there are also 2 animal companions as alternative proactive early plays. Now, of course, this deck runs a lot of spells. The early kind of defensive options are almost all spells, so it would be remiss to not include our boy Zul'jin in the deck, because that card's nuts. And also, it is a hunter deck, so there is Deathstalker Rexar in here, because that card is the tits. Now, the basic idea of the deck is simply survival until you can unleash a tremendously powerful swing turn with Flark's Boomzooka or Katharina, ideally after having played Dire Frenzy to add more beasts to the deck. Deathstalker Zul'jin can allow you to improve or multiply these effects as well. So for example, say Deathstalker Rexar can build you a massive zombies, like a Lifesteal Rush Bitter Tide Hydra. You can Dire Frenzy that. So then you have 3 Lifesteal Rush Bitter Tide Hydras in the deck. Then Flark's Boomzooka will pull 3 Bitter Tide Hydras from your deck, which will kill a bunch of stuff on your opponent's side, gain you a bunch of health. Then Revenge of the Wild, for 2 mana, will get you 3 massive minions back for 2 mana.
It's a pretty neat move, I gotta say.
And then you can play Zul'jin with stuff on the board. Dire Frenzy can go off again, then Flark's Boomzooka can go off again, then Revenge of the Wild can go off again.
This sounds fun. Yeah, this sounds like was play that record again kind of thing.
Yeah, there's like discovering all the inbuilt synergies in the deck was just a lot of fun. Some really stupid stuff happens when you play this deck if you are in the kind of longer like Controlia games where your opponent gives you time to do this kind of stuff. If you want a different way to play Hunter, which I'm sure all of you do at this point, no one's sick of seeing Hunter at this point, I do recommend giving this one a try.
You mean everyone's sick of seeing Hunter at this point, or?
Everyone is. However, when I was trying this out, I did find the list was running dry fairly option. Could do with some more consistent draw, and a couple of cards in the list didn't really add too much to the deck. So I have actually taken the liberty of doctoring the deck a wee bit to make it a bit more suitable for the meta we find ourselves in right now. So looking at this one up on the screen right now. Well, so the changes I have made are, so first of all, I've taken out the Eaglehorn bows as they are, I think, quite bad in the current meta. The extra charges you get from the secrets don't add much, as the bow itself is a bit mismatched against a lot of things people are playing right now, as well as the 2 duplicate secrets, which were Freezing and Wandering, and I've replaced those with 2 Cannon Shots and 2 Hunter's Marks. Mostly the Cannon Shot is a nod to Odd Paladin, but also with the Hunter's Mark it's a way of balancing the deck's previous inability to deal with one big minion which has several smaller minions around it. Because Deadly Shot, really bad if you're facing a 10-10 with 3 1/1s next to it, which is often the case you find against Odd Paladin once again. That deck is really good against this kind of deck. And everyone's playing it too, so you need to find a way of winning that matchup, or at least just staying alive until you can do some absolutely silly stuff. Then, without many minions, I think Houndmaster Shore was just wasted, because there was only the Spider Bomb really as early game minions. So I took both of those out, as the Spider Bomb without Houndmaster Shore in was also just pretty bad, because you didn't have Playdead, you didn't have Terrascale Stalker, and you didn't even have Ziliax to kind of synergize with the Spider Bomb. It was just a kind of weird inclusion. So I've replaced those two just with 2 trackings, because more consistent draw into combo pieces when you're playing a kind of combo-centric deck is just really good. And tracking is really powerful in any deck which has Dire Frenzy, because you discard cards and then you put cards back into your deck, so the downside to tracking can essentially be nullified because you run Dire Frenzy. Now, the baited arrows, they were a big kind of question mark for me, because I don't know if you noticed before, but there was baited arrow in the previous version, but there was not flanking strike. And flanking strike
that seems weird.
Yeah, so I just made the simple swap there because I think a really important breakpoint for hunter decks is being able to do 4 damage on turn 4. Camel shot, flanking strike has been like the go-to way for hunters to do it, and I think omitting that is making life a little bit too hard for yourself, because Odd Rogue's kind of making a bit of a resurgence once again, and you need a way of killing Henge Clan Thug in particular, but also there's Falderai Striders. A lot of the 4 health minions are in Rogue, but other classes can do just as much. And the 5/5 from Baited Arrow being situational is kind of a big deal, because very often you just don't get it off.
Yeah, if like you don't get not getting an overkill is kind of making the card not so good.
Yeah, it's just a little clunky, and I think Flanking Strike is just such a powerful card that any hunter deck which doesn't run it is kind of making a bit of a mistake. Finally, as some extra serious power cycle, because I've kind of gone for the hybrid hunter route of 1 of each secret now. So, Subject 9. I've replaced the Witchwood Grizzly with that, because drawing 5 bad cards from your deck, so you only draw good cards in the future, is just fantastic. Obviously, there is the possibility that Katharina pulls a Subject 9, but that is a very small possibility, so you kind of just take it, because if you draw Subject 9, you draw so much of your deck, you're absolutely fine with it, because when you're playing a combo deck like this, you need as much draw as possible, so the double tracking Subject 9 just lets you whiz through, and then you can go off with the aforementioned Dire Frenzy, Flarks, Revenge of the Wild, absolute nonsense.
Yeah, it used to be back in the day when people talked about like deck thinning with like aggro Pirate Warrior, just because or any deck with that patches involved, that was deck thinning. No, that wasn't deck thinning. This is deck thinning because it actually serves like a purpose.
Draw 5 cards with 1 5-mana 4/4. Hell yeah. So, another card I did try is Stitch Tracker, because I had a feeling that would be kind of good, but it's not as good as I thought it would be, because the Flark's Boomzooka summoning Stitch Tracker is just the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Like, cool, 3 mana 2/2.
Oh, whoops, yeah.
Yeah. So, I didn't like that one too much. The upside of it being able to just get an extra Katharina was pretty mega, or an extra Subject 9, but you know, I don't think it was the worst. I just happened to have a few games where it didn't really work so well for me. So if you want to try out Stitch Tracker, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But, so really, all I really did is I kept the high end of the deck like completely intact. Nothing has changed from Deathstalker Rexar and higher in terms of mana cost. I think that stuff is just great. It's very fun. But I've just kind of changed the defensive options the deck had to be a bit more kind of in line with what the meta is right now. So give both a try. Deck codes of both versions will be in the show notes, and let us know what you think of either version. If you have a suggestion for deck or card of the week you'd like us to play around with, remember you can shoot them to us on Twitter at @AroundTheHearth, or post them in our Discord, which will be linked to in the show notes with every episode. Now, Adam, let's move on to this week's main topic.
Yeah, we used eponymous in our last segment. Good, go us. That's a big word. Anyway, so at long last, on this past Thursday, the 21st of February, 2019, it was revealed to the public the Hearthstone Esports announcement of the competitive restructure for the upcoming year of competitive play. And once basically after the World Champs conclude in April, this is what's going to happen. This is what's happening. So I'll give you a bit of a TLDR from what we already know from the previous announcement. There's going to be 3 layers of competition: online qualifiers, 3 big LAN tournaments per year, and Premier Play, which is basically like the Pro Tour. So basically you need an invite to get there. The announcement basically filled in the many gaps regarding details of the first 2 stages of competitive play. We don't know anything just about what Premier Play will entail, but they did give more details about how online qualifiers work. rebobson, why don't you break that down for everybody?
Yeah. So what we now know about the online qualifiers. There will be 2 months of qualifiers for each of the 3 big LAN tournaments. The big LAN tournaments will be called Masters Tour events. So if I say that from now on, that is what I'm talking about. And the qualifiers will take place 2 months before each is due to occur. There will be 5 qualifiers per day, Wednesday to Sunday of each week. So there's 5 qualifiers, so people from any region can take part. They are not region locked. You will just need a card collection on the server the qualifier is taking place on to play. All qualifiers will take place on a single platform now, which is Battlefy. There's no longer the kind of trekking around trying to find where open cups are happening. And Battlefy will also, I believe, handle all the tournament admin. Now, the first of these Master Tour events will take place at the Link Hotel in Las Vegas on June 14th to 16th. So the qualifiers for that one will run through March and April, starting on the 1st of March. The second of 8 will take place in the Asia Pacific region, and the third will take place in Europe. Exact dates and locations are to be announced, but qualifiers will run for Asia Pacific through May and June, and Europe in July and August. Now, pricing for these qualifiers, it will be packs with the exact number as following. First and second place will get 20 packs of the most recent expansion. All packs will be the most recent expansion. Third to fourth will get 15. Fifth to eighth will get 10. Ninth to 16 will get 5. 17th to 32nd will get 3. 33rd to 64 will get 2. And 65th to 128 will get 1. If you finish 129th or higher of the 224 person qualifiers, you will not get a pack. But considering how often there are buys and things in the first round, there's a good chance if you just enter, you will get a pack at least. Additionally, first place will secure an invitation to the next Masters Tour event. If a player wins an online qualifier and receives an invitation to a Masters Tour, however, they are no longer allowed to enter qualifiers for the rest of that qualifying period. And qualifying in a qualifying period only qualifies you for the next Masters Tour. You cannot change to the next event. You will have to re-qualify.
So that means no gatekeeping. Yay!
Yep. Now, there are a multitude of other ways players can qualify for these main Masters Tour events. So, for placing top 200 on ladder each month, players will be placed in a ranked ladder qualifier. Winning these will also secure an invitation through a licensed third-party Hearthstone competition. We do not currently have any details of what these will be. We just know that there will apparently be third-party Hearthstone competitions which have invites. But we'll hear more about that in the future, I'm assuming. Finish has a top performer at a previous Hearthstone Masters Tour. So if you do well in one, you will automatically be invited to the next one. You receive an automatic invitation for finishing the previous year as a 1, 2, or 3-star master. All those players are automatically invited to all 3 events, I believe. Qualifying through the China Gold Series, because Chinese players cannot enter the online qualifiers, I believe. They have an entirely different qualification process.
We say this every week. China's a weird region.
Yep, I've got no idea how it works, and there's no way of finding out, so whatever. And finally, by being a Hearthstone Grandmaster, who I believe are the players competing Premier Play each week, they will receive automatic invitations to every Masters Tour event as well. Now, regarding the Masters Tour events, each tournament will contain it's somewhere between 300 and 400 participants. The prize pool will be $250,000, with the exact breakdown to be announced close to the event. However, we do know that the prizing will only be split between the top 1/3 of placings. Bottom 2/3 get nothing. These events will be purely competitive, so there will not be tickets available to go and watch the action as a spectator, as they have done in previous HCT Champ events.
Wait, what?
Competition. Yeah, they are not spectator events.
All right, go on.
Yep, which I think is rubbish, because I went to the last World Champs in Amsterdam. It was a great time. So I missed that when I first saw the announcement. I just saw it today when I was reading the notes. I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But moving on, competition will take place over 3 days. Day 1 will consist of 7 rounds of Swiss. Day 2 will feature 5 more rounds of Swiss into a top 8, which is 2 4-person double elimination groups, with the initial match being played, and then Day 3 will feature the remaining top 8 matches until there is a winner. Now, due to the number of players taking part, Blizzard will not be providing financial support regarding accommodation or travel to these Masters Tour events. What they have said is they do have a deal with the Link Hotel for a flat rate for players, which amounts to $410 plus tax to stay from Thursday night to Monday morning. Now,
yikes.
Now, the other main aspect of the announcement is the new competitive format, which is called Specialist format, as of course Conquest has been thrown in the bin.
Well, we've had Conquest for a long time, so...
Screw Conquest, it's a terrible format. So,
it is actually a bad format.
Yeah, so what is Specialist? It's a format somewhat similar to just... It's kind of like sideboarding, but not quite. It's a single class, 3-deck, best of 3 format with no ban. So the way it works, players will have one primary deck. This will be the first deck they queue in every series. So game 1 will always be a primary deck versus a primary deck. And then they will also have 2 other decks, which are called their secondary and tertiary decks. Now these 2 decks can differ from the primary deck by up to 5 cards. Doesn't have to be exactly 5 different cards. Can be 1 card different if you really want, but you probably should make most of the opportunities. And the way it works is after the first game between the 2 primary decks, players can choose whether to remain on their primary deck or they can switch to their secondary or tertiary decks. Deck choices will be blind, so opponents will not know which deck has been selected until a card is played that gives them the relevant information.
Oh, we should also mention as far as the 5 cards, when we say 5 cards, it's not 5 of a 2 of. It's 5 individual cards. So if you want to play a 2 of something, that is 2 of your 5 card allotment.
Yes, that is a very good point. Duplicates will count as 2 cards of your 5. Now, talking about the Specialist format, it's a weird kind of not as good sideboard. And I think the obvious reason for that is the fact that the client does not support sideboarding and they do not have the time to build a sideboarding feature into the game.
No, I mean, I think it was tested out in the very beginning when people were running their own tournaments, like before there was, like the very, very beginning of Hearthstone, like beta and just, in the existence of just classic set, like during beta and the very initial beginning of her open client for Hearthstone, like the idea of the sideboard was tinkered with in some smaller like homegrown grassroots tournaments, but never really panned out.
Yeah, the issue is just the fact that as the client doesn't support it, it's very hard to sideboard in Hearthstone because you need to like leave the entire match screen, go into your collection, faff about a bit, wait for your opponent to be done, then go back into the challenge screen and then play. Whereas in like MTGA, you have the option just within a match screen to just go, all right, I'm going to change these cards. Done. Like maybe this is a precursor to real sideboarding taking place because it's like not quite got the versatility of a proper sideboard this. Because sideboarding, I think, is a pretty interesting concept if you are doing a one-class format. But this one has just a lot less options available to it.
Yeah, like sideboarding's been a part of like other card games, especially Magic, that have been around for a long time. The sideboard is a lot more expansive, though. Granted, the decks are larger, but it allows for more choices that you can make with your sideboarding. Like you can tech for more things.
Yep.
And for example, in some cases, actually, like I know that a lot of the Japanese Magic players, they like to make what's called a modular sideboard, where they turn their deck from one thing into another, basically, which is kind of cool.
How does that work?
So basically, like let's say this doesn't happen very often now, but let's say there was an instance where there were 2 popular lists and they were kind of similar, but there were maybe like 15 or so cards that were different between them. You would slot out the 15 card difference and slot in your entire sideboard and have an entire new deck, basically. So let's say you were playing a control deck and you had a modular sideboard that turned your control deck into a combo deck or something like that, because if you wanted to face control, because you knew your aggro matchup was pretty good, you could side in the entire combo sideboard and slot out your heavy control cards for that. I'm not saying it gets done a lot, but it has get done in the past, and I've done it too playing Magic, and it does make it kind of fun. You still have cards in the sideboard you could just use individually anyway, but like you could still turn your deck into something completely different. But with 5 cards in Hearthstone, you can't really do that. So you don't have to really worry about that, I guess. I guess in some cases. I think in the case of Druid, maybe the only case where maybe 5 cards could make a big difference.
Like I think the kind of step here is kind of cool. Like, I think there would genuinely be a fair amount you could do in Hearthstone with sideboarding, and like if you had an expansive enough sideboard option, there is like genuine possibilities for like good players to really kind of tinker. I like the fact that you would have to do it mid match and like completely on the fly would it be like I think a real kind of skill test. But the fact that it's just 2 5-card decks is kind of like it's like a middle ground. So hopefully it's like it means that they're gonna go full sideboard support.
Yeah,
this is the idea.
Hopefully. My other, I actually asked a question in a Discord channel I'm in with some of the Blizzard Esports staff, and I didn't really get an answer on that. And that is, is it mandatory to have the secondary and tertiary decks, or are you allowed to just have like one of or neither, and you could just run either 1 or 2 decks the entire time? Or I guess you could just duplicate your primary deck to fill your tertiary slot if you were doing that, or make your primary deck copy your primary deck 3 times if you really wanted to do that.
If you did really want to, the stipulate is that you have to, for tournaments you have to submit 3 decks, because it's up to 5. 0 is a number which is included in up to 5, so you can just submit your primary deck as your secondary deck. If you did really want to, I think you'd be kind of insane to do that, but it's a possibility. It's not against the rules, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe if you were pretty confident with your primary build and didn't really have anything you wanted to change about it, I guess you could give it a try. But there's no reason not to use when people remember there was a time when I played Magic the Gathering where I never had sideboards, and now that I understand what they're for, I kind of never not have sideboards. So
yeah, it's kind of like if you can have this opportunity to make some matchups better, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. They're making these rules to help you out, basically.
Yeah, I've been signing up to a couple of qualifiers here and there. One thing to note about the qualifiers, actually, which I didn't touch on, is they go live exactly 2 weeks before they're due to happen. And sign-ups have been fast.
Yeah, they're going to fill up really quick. So if you're not signing up for tournaments now, you're kind of a little bit behind.
Yeah, but only for the first couple weeks of tournaments.
Yeah,
there's 5 going live every day from Wednesday to Sunday. So the ones you can play in, just kind of set an alarm to say, okay, it goes live at this exact time on this day. I'm going to sign up for this one, and have your deck codes ready. Yeah,
just know what you want to play right away. I guess the other thing is someone could sign up for a lot of tournaments, win one of them, and then open up a spot for whatever reason.
Yeah, the wait lists have been quite big, but what they are hoping, I believe, is that over time enough people will kind of make it through that wait lists will get shorter and shorter. And obviously, people will not check in; they'll forget, etc., etc.
Yeah, people just might not show up sometimes. Like they'll sign. These are free, so there's no risk involved really. So you can just sign up, not show up, not even a big deal, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of a reversion to an issue that we did have with the Open Cup system, where there were just like massive rushes to sign up, and it was kind of like an APM test. That was also an issue in the previous system where signups for qualifiers for tour stops were concerned, and now it's an issue with this system as well. So they still haven't found a really good way of dealing with it, and I don't know if they're going to do that anytime soon. But it's an issue we've had for a long time, so it's not like a new issue with this system.
No, definitely not. That issue will unfortunately persist until something is figured out. I'm not sure what that would be, or I can even speculate as to what that would be. But anyway, we've laid out all the details. We want to know. So we've thought about a lot of pros and cons. So we're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna be good cop, and rebobson's gonna be bad cop on these.
I think that's what everyone's gonna expect, Adam.
Yeah.
How about I lay out the positives, you lay out the negatives?
All right. I'll be bad cop this time. That sounds good.
Everyone's gonna expect me to just.
I never get to be bad cop. So I never get to be bad cop. So yeah.
Normally it's me raging about things, so I'm going to be positive this time. So, what are the good things about this system that we think about? So, one big positive is there is a lot more online tournaments for amateur players to play in and gain tournament experience. That's something which has been lacking if you didn't know where to look before. Now they're all localized in one place. Players who want to play can find these tournaments and they can give them a try. Another thing we've talked about before is just the fact that tournaments are now qualifying people for tournaments instead of ladder. Ladder does qualify you for a tournament, then there's still a tournament which qualifies you for a tournament. So tournament to tournament makes a lot more sense than just grinding ladder.
You must have said tournament like 10 times in that statement. Tournament.
Yeah, but still, these ladder qualifiers do still give some amount of incentive for people to play ladder, though. Well, I'm going to touch on that one in a con. Never mind. Anyone can qualify for these main, massive Masters Tour events if they want, if they try hard enough, if they want to qualify, and those qualifiers are open to anyone. So theoretically, anyone can make it to a Masters Tour. The specialist format, I think this is a really big, important one. It makes the price of competing cheaper because now players need to have one 40-card deck maximum instead of 4 30-card decks. Building a lineup to be competitive if you are kind of just a free-to-play player is really hard.
Yeah, because maybe you're not good at these other decks. It's like, oh, now I have to practice this kind of thing.
The aspect of having to play other decks is, I think, just a good thing for players. But the price of building 4 decks versus building 1 is, like, I think, quite a big deal. Because now players can just build like 3 variants of Zoo, say, and can do well with it. Whereas before it'd be like, I've got to build 4 decks, all of which have like some amount of epics and legendaries. There's a lot more cost there. So
yeah,
it makes it makes competing cheaper, which is, I think, a good thing because it will, in theory, get more people competing.
Yeah, because one of those decks is going to break your wallet for sure if you have to build it.
Yeah, that like every deck has a legendary or 2, so 4 of those versus 1 of those is a big deal if your dust or your cash is limited. And also, tournaments being unified on one platform, which is Battlefy, instead of multiple disparate platforms as under the previous Open Cup system, makes the whole thing a lot easier to understand and more accessible, because a big part of the previous system was just finding out where the hell the next Open Cup was happening, which was really irritating. Now they're all on the Play Hearthstone website, really easy, great. Just look at HS Esports on Battlefy, and they got a big list of qualifiers. Just go through those. So overall, it does make the whole system really, besides one point we're going to touch on in the cons, a lot more accessible for the kind of amateur player who wants to just kind of give it a shot, basically, which I think is good. There are good things in here, which I'm happy about. But with pros, there must be cons, Adam. What do we think?
All right, so start out with a big one. And this is, I hate to sound kind of like a meme, but the price of travel and accommodation is too damn high. So yeah, price of accommodation and is simply infeasible for a lot of players. Like, Hearthstone's kind of like it was supposed to really be, I guess, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this, but it kind of is a budget game. And the way the previous system worked was that qualification for playoffs via either points or challenger finals would guarantee you a minimum amount of prize money, with all players guaranteed a minimum of like $1,000. So at least you could like cover your expenses. Blizzard would cover expenses to seasonal championships, worlds, and private top 16 tour stops, which had online qualifiers such as Copa America and HTC Germany. Players would have to, but other than that, players would have to self-fund trips to publicly open tour stops, such as the one I ran, DreamHack Grand Prix, and any third-party tournament they wanted to play in. So that meant players from certain regions, such as Eastern Europe and Latin America, particularly relied on this system due to the extra distances involved for them, as well as lower average wages compared to countries in Central Europe and North America, meant the extra support was absolutely necessary to compete. So basically, it's really good if you win, but like then you have to figure out how I won. I get to go to this live event. How the heck am I going to get there? In most cases.
Yep, it's kind of it's like one big issue which I've seen from like a lot of Latin American players as well. Like they are probably the biggest critics of the system because it does create this kind of inherent region bias, because if you are in one of the regions where one of these master tours is going to take place, you have one which is easy to get to. Latin America is far away from all of them. Eastern Europe is far away from all of them. Africa and Oceania are far away from all of them.
I mean, I don't really know any players from Africa per se, but if there are,
yeah, there's a few. I can count a couple when I was casting for WSG. It's not a very active region, but there's still people there, and I'm sure some of them would want to go.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like if you're taking Hearthstone seriously, you want to show up to some of these events.
Yeah, and so the pricing is definitely, I think, an issue. Like I am an example of a player who just can't now. If I did want to go, I just can't afford it.
Right.
And like I think they could have addressed this in a couple of different ways. One of them is the prize pool is really top heavy. Like the really good thing about the previous playoff system was everyone was guaranteed a small amount. So it meant that people were safe to kind of make this sort of plunge. People could go to playoffs because they knew that they would at least recoup their costs. Now it's a gamble for anyone to go to this. So if you don't have like this safety net, a lot of people will just choose to not go. Which, like, if you've like gone to the effort of like qualifying, winning one of these qualifiers, and then just thought, I can't really justify spending like $1.5 grand going to Vegas if I don't even know I'll get anything back from it, is a bit much. So I think if the prize pool was just kind of split out a different way, so that like, yeah, less prizing for like first place, but if everyone gets something which they know will cover like their travel, I think it creates a much more sort of positive, balanced experience for players. And then that kind of really that really boosts everything else they've done, like which I just outlined in the positives. Because if you've made all these changes to make competing more accessible, and then just have this huge price point barrier, it kind of clashes with your kind of modus operandi. Whereas if players who want to compete, they win a qualifier and they know that they can just go, they'll get their travel covered by like this, like if like every player who qualified got like,
even if it was like $1,000, that would be fine.
Yeah, like $500 grand, 1K, just guaranteed something. That would be good, I think. But the way it is right now, a lot of players are just looking at it and thinking, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more daunting, and it also is like, I guess it still opens the door for gatekeeping a little bit. You could still win and not go. But I remember that in recent history, actually, the Magic Pro Tour had an issue with this, where a Pro Tour player boycotted Worlds because of issues similar to this. And he made a whole Reddit post about it, and it was a catalyst for Magic to make big changes to the Pro Tour, which is now the Mythic Tour. So they included more money and guaranteed prizing for its participants. Because as a Pro Tour player, you were like losing money going to these events, kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of players, like 66% of players who go to these Masters tours will lose money, and that's really
hurts,
bad
yeah.
EV.
That hurts.
That is awful EV if you're considering to go.
EV meaning estimated value, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so like, and it creates again this sort of intrinsic region bias where the EV directly correlates to where you are in the world. Like, a player from Latin America, a player from Eastern Europe is guaranteed bad EV for all of these events. While there's one per year where, like, if someone's close to Vegas, they can just go, yeah, sod it, I'll go anyway. Like, I could probably maybe justify going to the event in Europe, and it wouldn't cost me too much. Players in like, it's probably going to be, like, Eastern Asia, like Korea, Japan, somewhere like that. Players in that part of the world, that for their Masters Tour, they'll have an opportunity. But players in like the regions we talked about, they don't have that kind of opportunity any point throughout the year.
Yeah, and that really stinks. So on top of that, moving on to the next downside of these changes. Major criticism, and this actually was a major criticism with the previous system, with multiple worldwide tour stops, was that it was heavily favored players with serious financial backing who were able to go from tour stop to tour stop, amassing more points than those who were unable to do so. This mostly include like sponsored players or players, mostly sponsored players, I'd say. If you're at tour stop, there are definitely a lot of familiar faces you would see there, like Viper, Orange, Crane, Pheno. They would all be
Hunter
there.
Ace.
Hunter
players
Ace.
For these players for like big teams like Tempo Storm, who just have cash, they'll have the backing because they don't have to pay out of pocket. Their teams will pay because they know that they are likely to recoup the investment.
Right, because they want to get them sending their player there is basically a marketing tool. People see them with the jersey or any kind of logo and any kind of partnership or investor logo, or any kind of like sponsorships that the team has, and that's just basically like a walking billboard for them.
Right.
So the new system doesn't really address that complaint, and for certain top tier, certain tier of players makes it considerably worse. So like players from the aforementioned regions, Latin America, Eastern Europe, players representing smaller organizations without serious financial backing, those who play while studying full-time, sorry, rebobson, etc., may simply be unable to recoup their invitation to a Masters Tour, even if they qualify, which does a lot to undo all the positive changes they made when it comes to making competitive play more accessible.
Yeah, it's
kind
of a bummer. So like I said before, these changes are largely kind of a net positive for sort of the really kind of amateur players, the ones who are just starting out competitively. And I don't think it really affects the highest tier of player too much either. Like the really top pros, they're not really affected by this, because if it's the players who don't have to pay for this, like their travel, their accommodation, their self, they're fine. It's the kind of mid-tier, like the lower level pros, the semi-serious players, the players who players who could under the previous system like make a run of things without having to pay anything, because you could go to playoffs, you could do well there, you got the prize money for that, it would cover your travel. Then if you made it to a seasonal champs, Blizzard would pay for your travel and expenses to that one. Then if you made it to Worlds, Blizzard would pay for your travel and expenses to that one, and all the while you'd be getting prize money. So there was an opportunity under the old system for players to not have to put money in to make it all the way. There's no opportunity like that under this system. So the kind of middle tier of players is kind of, I think, the one that's hit quite hard by this. And obviously I'm a bit bummed because I'm in that tier of player.
Yeah, it really stinks because like you're kind of like you're on that ground of like you want to break into the next tier, but you can't because you need some money, and you have
And
to
now,
get and to get money you have to be on a big team, and to get on a big team you have to play in tournaments, but you can't play in tournaments because you don't have the money. It's just like this big circle of things you have to do but can't do it because of this other thing, and but in order to do that, so you try to fix that, but you have to do something else. It's just a big mess.
yeah, like the possibility that this does create some kind of paywall for like new players breaking into the scene, because that was one of the most exciting things over the past year of Hearthstone watching it, was you just saw someone have a breakout performance, do incredibly well, and make their name that way. Now
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot harder. Now it's the main breakout performances are going to be mostly from players nearby to the Masters Tour who just go, yeah, whatever. I can
Right.
afford to go like across one state to Vegas, something like that.
Yeah, like if you live in California, your chances of going to Vegas are very high, for example.
Yeah. Whereas like for me, a flight to Vegas is
Well, you have to stop up in Iceland, then probably New York, then you can fly from New York to California. So it's like a 3 days just to get there.
yeah, like last time I checked, it's like 800 quid, something like that. Hotel on top of that. I don't own that much money in like the world. I'd probably have to sell my computer if I wanted to do it.
Well, that would
But I
kind of
really
be
want to.
counteractive, yeah.
Go just sell my computer, go and play on
Alright.
my phone.
All right, next con. So the first tour spot or Masters Tour spot takes place at the same time as DreamHack Summer, which may go some way into explaining why AudreyKillss, the chief product officer of DreamHack Events and Esports, tweeted saying that all DreamHack Grand Prix events will be on hiatus for 2019. Though he also said that scheduling is not the only issue, though he, quote, could not divulge more without revealing confidential information. So we can only speculate toward any other reasons. This is a massive bummer to anyone who loved DreamHack events, not just for tournaments, but also social and the social community experience they provided. I know that a lot of people were really bummed out by that because opens were like a really good time to like meet people, or maybe even meet people you've never even met before. Like maybe you were in THL and you could meet with some of your teammates there. For example,
Yeah.
I know Steffi's done that with some of the events we've had in Philadelphia. Like she met Bat Maisel there. She met Bat Maisel there for the first time, for example, and
Yeah,
she met Earl there for also.
Yeah, like DreamHack was like they were big social events on like the Hearthstone calendar, and like they have said that there will be some Hearthstone at some of their events, but like obviously nowhere near the same scale as the Grand Prix events. I think there's a good chance that they're not awarding HCT points anymore is probably one contributing factor. The scheduling conflict is kind of like a big just screw you to DreamHack, and that sucks. So yeah, DreamHack not really doing Hearthstone is pretty unfortunate, and I think the next one is DreamHack Dallas.
Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon actually. So there's going to be
Yeah,
no open there.
Yeah, so a lot of people already have tickets based on the assumption that Hearthstone would be there, but because the Hearthstone Grand Prix was never formally announced, people just bought tickets off an assumption. There is no refund available if you did buy a ticket to DreamHack Dallas wanting Hearthstone, and now that you found out there isn't any. So if you are listening and you did buy a ticket to Dallas, then that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because
Really.
now you have to figure out what you're going to do with your entire weekend, or if you're even going to want to go and try to recoup some of your investment.
Yeah, hopefully there'll still be some Hearthstone. There'll be some kind of like mid-level tournament, maybe like the ones that Geico Gaming hold at PAX East, that kind of level. And those
I
are
mean,
still
that would
pretty
be
good.
fine. Yeah.
Still okay. There's as long as there's like something, but like now there's no real reason to go to DreamHack just for the Hearthstone because
That's
there's
not
no
to say there's
big event.
yeah. That's not to say there's not other things to do there, but if you were hoping for Hearthstone,
Yeah.
you'd be a little disappointed.
Yeah, I just mean before the Grand Prix was literally a reason to go to DreamHack because it was massive. You could meet so many people. Now that's not a thing. And like this isn't really like we don't know how connected this is to the esports announcement, but it would like these tweets happened like 2 days after the esports announcement. We've got to assume they are connected in some way.
Yeah. And then the final big criticism or con is simply the void it leaves through a lot of the year. With only 3 big events per year and players unable to compete in qualifiers once they have qualified, it's just not a lot to do, a great deal more competitive Hearthstone to play, as well as really less Hearthstone to watch with the absence of DreamHack and the tour stops. Hopefully Premier Play is enough to fill the void of competitive esports streams, and there are enough mid-level community events, community-organized tournaments to fill the playing void. It's just really hard. It's really hard to invest in Hearthstone when Activision Blizzard wants to kind of make a lot of the decisions and hold all the cards. No pun intended.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah, like I like the really good thing about the kind of tour stop system was it meant that there was like a tournament to watch every weekend. For someone who likes the esports side of it, it was awesome. And like just the fact we don't know about how Premier Play is going to work, who's doing it, who is broadcasting it, who's casting it, who's playing in it, any of this stuff. So right now we're just kind of waiting to see what kind of stuff is there going to be to watch. Because obviously we've got 3 big tournaments per year. The online qualifiers, I believe, will never be streamed because there's so many of them. Maybe someone will cobble together streaming the finals, something like that, but we do not know.
I think I think there's like one big kind of like shoulder shrugging moment also, because it's just recently in 2018 they made a change to make ladder less important to competitive Hearthstone. Now they basically create a format which almost just about makes tournaments basically like ladder, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, there would be enough marked difference. Like there's more difference the more into the whole sideboard thing they go, which is why I'm hoping they go a lot deeper on it and make it just like a whole, like a really kind of interesting, complex thing, rather than like the simplified version it is now. Like, I think it was Firebat tweeted, like right now you have 2 different you essentially have 3 different possibilities of deck. If you have 10, like a sideboard of 10 cards from your, like when you can pick and choose individually in between games, then you do not have 3 different decisions in between games. You have I don't know the exact number, but it's like
you have a bunch of smaller ones basically.
Yeah, it's something. It's like 10 to the power of something or something to the power of 10. I can't figure out exactly how the maths works off the top of my head right now because I've had a really long day, but you get the idea. It was a really big number because it's like 10 factorial. That's the number of different possibilities you have. For anyone who knows what 10 factorial is, I'm going to look it up right now.
We have the internet. We can make it happen.
3,682,800 is 10 factorial. I might actually be wrong about it is 10 factorial, but a really big number, whatever. Like the more modular you make decision making, the bigger propensity there is to make a decision matter, and the more it rewards better players, which is ultimately what you want. Like you want it to be accessible for everyone, but you still want to have it so that the best players will consistently be doing the best, because that's the best advertisement for an esport you can have.
Yeah, you want to showcase who your best players are pretty much as you can.
Right. So I think it's a mixed bag of an announcement. At first, I was pretty bummed out about it because it affects me personally in quite a negative way. But overall, it's not the worst. But, okay, there is one big like it's either a pro or a con. We don't know yet, and that is specialist format hinges hugely on the balance team, because while previously we've had one balance patch per expansion cycle, this is the first one where we've had two. Maybe that means they're looking to get even more kind of proactive when it comes to balancing or like kind of freshening up the meta, because a specialist format in a meta which is particularly undiverse, where class diversity is less prominent, like say for example a month after Frozen Throne was released, where Raza Priest was just the nuts. Imagine a specialist format tournament at that point in time.
Oh my god, everyone would run that. Everyone would run it. There would be no reason not to run that as your deck.
Unless you were trying to play either Big Priest or I think it was Jade Druid at the time. Stuff like that. You would have a very, very kind of small pool of decks that were viable in the specialist format. Like right now, I've been theory crafting a bunch, and there is a lot of stuff you can do because nothing right now is the best deck.
Yeah, there is no one best deck right now, which is great.
Like Hunter's a very good class, but then it's very weak to other things, and then other things beat the things which beat Hunters. So we do have quite a like the meta right now is quite interesting when you look at it through the lens of the specialist format, because there is a lot of stuff you can do. But there have been metas in the past where specialist format tournaments, especially as a viewer, would be absolutely terrible because they would be so compact in what people bring.
And very monotonous too.
Yeah, it like the monotony in a one class best of three format where everyone is playing 2 or 3 different decks would be like a real turn off to viewers. So like this format really lives and dies on how on top of the meta the balance team stays.
Well, they did just lay off a bunch of workforce to hire more developers. So let's see if they put that to good work.
Fingers crossed. But if like, I think looking at it that point, the fact that this is like the first expansion cycle they have done a second balance change, like probably means that they are looking towards doing like being more proactive rather than just reactive when they really had to, which is a good thing for the future of specialist. So some reason to maybe be optimistic in some capacity.
Yeah, we don't really. The thing is, like, we can chicken little about things all we want, but until we actually try it, all we can do is speculate and hypothesize and think about things. But
for people who want to check it out, the Battle Riff Pro League, which just finished season 1. Season 2 of it does start tomorrow, and it is taking place in the specialist format. The first stream of it is going to happen this Wednesday with this guy casting. So if you do want to check out what the specialist format is like as a viewer, I pretty much recommend checking that out at 6 p.m. Central East European time. I don't know the name of my own time zone, apparently. On twitch.tv/BattleRiff, I believe. So that will be like the first. I think that will be the first streamed showcase of the specialist format. So that will probably be worth checking out, because I'm interested to see how it goes, because I'm going to be casting it. I will have no idea how the format's going to play out. So that'll be an interesting experience for everyone.
Yeah, so we also want to get your guys' feedback. What you guys and gals out there, what do you think about the specialist format? What do you think about the changes to esports? Drop us a tweet on Around the Hearth or on Facebook.com/Around the Hearth, and let us know what you're thinking about, all these esports changes and the new format coming up.
Yeah. Well, I think we've pretty much touched on everything we wanted to. We just spent a good 45 minutes talking about the esports changes. So
well, they were important, so we got,
Yeah. And that's why we have shifted how to be a better control player to next week, so make sure to tune to that one. But that is going to be a wrap for this week. Thank you for tuning in Around the Hearth once again, everyone. Unfortunately, we don't have any new reviews to read out on this week's show. If you liked what you hear, please do go to the links in the show notes to either Podbean or iTunes and tell us what you think about the show there. And there are a whole bunch of ways you can support the show. On Patreon, at patreon.com/aroundthehalf, on Twitch using a Twitch Prime sub, a regular sub or follow, or by joining the links to our Discord server in the show notes. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/aroundthehalf and Twitter at aroundthehalf. And you can listen to the show on Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean, as well as watching the episodes on our YouTube each week. And with that, I have been rebobson.
And I've been Adam.
Reminding you to say hello to a squirrel, and we'll see you around the hearth next week.